We're in the midst of the prophecies that were offered by Yeshayah to the king Achaz, a wicked king. He said how Yehuda is going to be destroyed, and over again, one of his main ideas and themes, the idea that the people need to rely upon God, not upon other nations, not upon Egypt, not upon Syria. And so we continue now with chapter 9, which is really continuation of the last chapter and goes even into the next chapter. Ha'am ha'holchim ba'choshech ra'u or gadol. Yoshvei be'eretz tzalmavet or noga alehem. The people that walked in darkness have seen or will see a brilliant light. Those who dwell in the land of gloom, light has dawned. If you remember in the last chapter, you talked about that those who are in darkness will not see the shachar. They won't see the dawn. They won't see the beginning of a new day. Here he's saying that there is hope, that those who are in darkness will see shachar. They will see light, and not just any light, an or gadol. They'll see a great light. Here, bita hagoy lo higdalta hasimcha. You've magnified, right? You've made the nation great. You've given it great joy. They rejoice before you, like at the reaping time, at the time when they divide the spoil. Right? They bore the yoke. They were whipped. They were broken with sticks. Their taskmasters you have broken as on the day of Midjan. Kichol saon saon barash v'simla migolala b'damim v'ayta l'sreifa ma'chelet eish. And you should know that the boots that you stomp with and the garments that you wore in infamy have been fed to flames, devoured by fire. So here this is talking about that the enemies, the ones who were coming to destroy Bnei Yisrael, they have been destroyed. And there are those who say that, understanding this verse, that where it says that their garments, their garments are in blood and it's burnt. This is the destruction of Sancherev, who was burnt by an angel, and this is what's going to happen in the future. And we understand the future is now going to be revealed to us in this next verse. Ki yeled yulad lanu, bain, nitan lanu, vatihi hamisra al shichma. For a child has been born to us, or will be born to us. A son has been given to us, and authority has settled on his shoulder. Vayikra shmo, and he will be called. Ready for, right? We've had some names. We had Emmanuel. We had Maher Shlal. I can't remember it anymore from the last chapter. The name that's about the lute is soon going to be ours. That I said some rapper or something was given that name, and right. And this is the fourth child that we had mentioned. The first one back in chapter 6 was Sha'ar Yashuv, and here we have the fourth name. There's a question amongst the commentators to how to understand: is this his full name? Is this referring to God? Rashi will say that everything but the last two words are referring to God. That God is the one who's going to call him this, and there are a lot of great adjectives here describing God, and others say, no, this is what his name means. So what is that name? Now that I've set it up, drum roll please. Pele Yoetz. Pele Yoetz means, right, a Yoetz is an advisor, so a wondrous advisor, right? Somebody who's brilliant. El Gibor, a mighty God. Avi Ad, an eternal father. Sar Shalom, a peaceable ruler. And so here we've had different children that have been mentioned to Yeshayah, that presumably Yeshayah is going to have. This one presumably is not the child of Yeshayah. This is a national child. And the great majority of commentaries, the Jewish commentaries, understand this child as being Chizkiyahu. Achaz was a wicked king like his father before him. Chizkiyahu is going to be a great king. And Chizkiyahu is the one who you can understand in different ways. He is, maybe God is saying that he's the Sar Shalom, or God is saying that he is the one who's going to be the brilliant advisor and the mighty God and the sort of eternal. That's because those things describe God. That's why Rashi said it's not his name. But either way, this is saying, right, we've been walking in darkness, so we're going to see the great light. And when is that great light going to come? Oh, it's going to come soon, because very soon we're going to have a child born to us who's going to have these great qualities. Continuing verse 6, Lemarbeh hamisrau l'shalom ein ketz al kisei David v'amamlachto lachinota Right? And this is a sign or a token of God's abundant authority and how God can make peace without limitation from David's throne and David's kingdom, that it should remain firmly established. The important words, with justice and with equity or righteousness, for now and forever. This is what the God who is zealous, the God who is jealous, the God who's the Lord of hosts will make happen. Right? God is somehow, well, this is saying in sort of fanciful poetic languages, God cares about the descendants of David. He cares about that kingdom, and God will be strict and strong to ensure that that kingdom remains. God will use zeal, alacrity to make sure that happens, and it's going to happen. We learned it in the book of Kings, referred to the last couple of chapters as well, the great miracle of the army of Sancheiriv having to flee Jerusalem when they had laid siege, and during the time of Chizkiah, which is in the future of this chapter, but we learned about it a number of weeks ago. Continuing in verse 7. Davar shalach Adonai b'Yaakov nafal v'Yisrael. So God let loose a word against Jacob, and it fell upon Israel. V'yadu ha'am kulo Ephraim v'yoshev shamron b'ga'ava v'goda levav lemor. And all the people will take note, right? They will all know. Ephraim and the inhabitants of Samaria, in their arrogance and haughtiness, Liveinim nafalu v'gazit nivna. Bricks have fallen. We will rebuild the stone. Shikmim gudu va'arazim nachlif. Sycamores have felled. We'll grow cedars instead, right? So they're saying that destruction is going to happen. So if destruction is going to happen to their bricks, what are they going to do? They're going to build a different type of tree. That's what they're saying here, right? It will be okay. Nevertheless, Vayiskav Adonai et Sarei Ritzin Alav v'et Oivav Yisachsech. God will let the enemies of Rezin, the triumph over it, and stirred up its foes. Right? Who are the enemies of Ritzin? Who is the king of Aram? These are. This is the Assyrians. Aram mikedem uplishtim me'achor. Right, Aram from the east and the Philistines from the west. They will destroy the northern kingdom. They will devour Israel. Right, it's like they're eating them. That's what the destruction is going to be. Chew them up. They're going to be nothing like. Nevertheless, and this is words we're going to see over and over again, and of course, over and over a few times in the next couple of chapters. God's anger remains. His arm is still outstretched. And we pointed this out a few chapters ago as well. When we have these words, Yado Netuyah, reminds us of Zeroah Netuyah, the words that it uses when God, the language that's used when God took the Jewish people out of Egypt, destroyed a nation on their behalf, the Egyptians, and here he has to destroy the northern kingdom, the Israelites. This is, even though, right, it's showing the contrast in a sense. In the beginning of this chapter, it talks about how Yehuda is going to have this child born to them, who's going to be a Pele, Yoetz, an El Gibor, Aviad, Sar Shalom, is going to bring peace. God can do this. That's what's going to happen in Judah to the descendants of David and his kingdom. But in Israel, there's going to be tremendous destruction. And continuing in verse 12, Ha'am lo shav ad hamakehu, because the people have not turned back, even after they were struck down. They didn't seek out God. They didn't try, even though, part of the idea in the Torah is when something bad happens to you, you should find out, you should figure out what you've done wrong. Doesn't mean you should tell if something bad happens to somebody else. You should describe to them what they've done wrong. But if something bad has happened to me, I should see, what did I do wrong? What was the mistake that I made? What was my terrible error? What was my offense? The people don't do that. They don't seek out God. They don't try to correct their behaviors. Continuing in verse 13, God is going to cut off from Israel head and tail, palm branch and reed in a single day. Here comes surprisingly, we would think the Rosh is going to be, the leaders, the wealthy, the Zanav, the tail. Right, we say on Rosh Hashanah, La Rosh V'lo Zanav, we should be like the head, not like the tail. when we're doing the Simanim on Rosh Hashanah. So we would think the Rosh is the leaders and the Zanav is the Amcha, is the regular people, but that's not what it says here. Who are the Rosh? It's the elders, the magnates, right? It's the nobility. Those are the heads. But who is the other people? Who are the tail? The false prophets are the tails. And what is interesting comes back to one of the themes of Yeshayah, of social justice, right? The widows, the orphan, those whose society has not given a chance, and because it's been a corrupt society, the society of Israel, they are not going to suffer the way the nobility, the way the leaders, the people in charge who are making the mistakes are going to suffer. Continuing verse 15, Vayu me ashrei ha'am hazeh mat'im ume usharav mevulaim. The people's leaders have been misleaders. Those who are led have been confused, right? That's what's happened to them. And if you look at this pasuk where we have the word ashrei and usharav, right, which reminds us a little bit of Ashur. Ashur, Syria is going to be the hand of God that's going to do this to the people, right? And it's almost like they are acting like Ashur in misleading the people. Al Kain, al Bachurav lo yismach Adonai v'et yotav v'et amrotav lo yirachem ki lo chanaf v'merav v'chol peh davar nevela b'chol zot lo shava po v'od yinatura. This is why God will not spare their youth nor show compassion to their orphans and widows, for all are ungodly and wicked, and every mouth speaks impiety. So here God says, right, at first, I'm going to take care of the wealthy. The Zanav even is not the ones who are lacking, who are in difficult places, but because we don't turn back to God, God continues with this destruction being, which is the complete destruction of the northern kingdom. And here in this verse 16, we have the second time we have this phrase, which we mentioned before, Lo shava po va'od yado netuya, right? But still God's anger has not abated. God is still upset. His arm, his outstretched arm is still there. Because wickedness has blazed forth like a fire. It's devoured everything. It's kindled the woods. It has turned into smoke, but God's anger hasn't turned back. Right? This is still going on. This is all happening. Right? God's anger and destruction is not just happenstance. It's because of the behavior of the people. But the fury of God, and again, over and over again, we have God here is Hashem Tzvaot, Hashem Tzvakot, right? The word Tzava, the Lord of hosts, his army. The earth was shaken, and the people will be like a devouring fire. None of them spared. And interestingly, we talked about in the last chapters, it talked about the Assyrians being like a flood. It used the words that was used was they were going to be water, which was going to run over you. And here it is fire. And of course, those are two opposites. And to think of how great the destruction is has to be described both as a flooding and with fire and destruction that happens due to fire. Interesting to note, at least to me, the two different ways that their destruction is predicted. Continuing verse 19. Vayigzor al yamin v're'eh vayochal ad smol. They snatched on the right, but remained hungry. They consumed on the left without being sated. Each devoured the flesh of its own kindred. Right? The pillage, the plunder, the destruction is going to happen everywhere. That's what's happened in a sense in the past by the bad leaders and by the kingdom of Israel. And so it's what's going to happen. It's going to be destruction and more destruction and more destruction. Menashe et Ephraim v'Ephraim et Menashe yachdav hema al Yehuda b'chol zot lo shava po va'od yado netuya. Menashe Ephraim's and Ephraim's Menashe, both of them are against Judah, but God's anger has not turned back. The divine arm is still outstretched. The third time in this chapter we've had those phrases, right? We had Ephraim and Menashe were brothers. Ephraim and Menashe were the other kingdom. They're the children of Yehuda, but they together, what did they do? Right? They joined together for destruction. They joined together to kill Judah, to gang up on Yehuda. And that's not what they're supposed to do. That's not what's supposed to happen. Yes, there was a divide in the kingdom, but this is why the kingdoms, in a sense, are going to be destroyed, because they have gathered together to attack their fellow Israelite. And for that, God's anger remains for much time. And so this chapter, in so many ways, encapsulates much of what we've talked about with Yeshayah. There is hope. There's going to be a great light. Those who are walking in darkness. That's the first half of the chapter. But the second half of the chapter talks about death and destruction that's going to come, not to the tribe of Yehudah, but to the others, to the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, to the northern kingdom, which for them will happen very soon during the reign of Isaiah.